starting the show, everything was going fine. Rashid came in the booth, everything started freezing. Um, Please have patience with us. This is not us doing this. This is actually probably StreamYard, most likely, because it seems like every time I add Rashid, things just go haywire. We want to ask you all to have a little patience with us. This is really starting to tee me off a little bit because they don't interfere with other people's shows like they're interfering with ours. So if you give me a chance, please have patience with me. I'm going to try to put Rashid on the screen so he can talk to you all. And what I'm going to do, and I'm going to while he's speaking, I'm going to come back in and interrupt him while he's speaking. So before I get back in, so let me put Rashid on, and hopefully this will work and they'll straighten out everything. So let me add him to the yeah. Rashid, the people forced me on to out again, try to come back in. And man, they messing with everything on this.
You sound like you're in a phone booth or something.
I
Can you
know
hear
it.
me?
I know it. They're messing with the audio. They're messing with the video thing. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very good.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes.
All right, listen. All right. So what we're doing, I want to explain to the people who are just joining us again. Everything was going good. I added Rashid to the stream. Then my stream started acting up. Audio started acting up. Video started acting up. And it happened 3 or 4 minutes before the start of the show. So again, Rashid, I want you to talk to the people about the geopolitical situation that's going on, the situation. Take myself out of the stream, and I'm gonna refresh everything, and it may take me a minute or two to come back on. Just you handle the show while that is going on. So again, we apologize to what's going on. You StreamYard, you suck. YouTube, you suck, and I want to just say that live on the air while to prevent us from. Go ahead, Rashid. I'm about to refresh
Well,
myself.
maybe that's the reason. You know, you brought in that evil Rashid from the West Coast. It made the whole thing go up and down.
So, okay, hold on. Let me say this also. Let me let me say this also. As you're talking to the people, listen. I'll be refreshing my screen to come back in. It may take me a minute or so, and if both Rashid and myself both get cut off, do not leave the stream. It's just going to take us a second to get back on because of the tricks that they're playing on the show right now. So please have patience with us. We really appreciate that. Go ahead, Rashid. You take the floor.
Yeah, well, it would bring me in as everything start having trouble with it. But what we're seeing around the world, you know, that Turkey's situation is devastating. I was watching RT, and it is devastating with that earthquake over there. And it's if you want some news, you got to go outside of America. MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, they all ABC, and they all the same, basically all the same newspaper. You know, the people on the right hate MSNBC, and the people on the left hate Fox. Well, they all of them getting the same news, so you can't see anything that they saying beyond their narrative. If you know, he bad this guy, bad that, bad Putin. Putin is the worst. Matter of fact, Putin been past Hitler in being evil. But Putin have not gone around the world and attacked. Putin and Russia haven't attacked 10, 15, 20 countries in the last 20 years. Who done that? Did Putin bomb Fallujah, Iraq Fallujah? Did Putin bomb up Syria? Did Putin bomb up Libya? Did the Russians bomb Afghanistan? Did the Russians bomb Lebanon? Did the Russians bomb Yemen? Did the Russians bomb all the northern African countries? Mali and was Russia over there bombing up all of them people? But Russia is bad. One needs to think of these things when they're thinking about the empire. The empire is the personification of evil all around the world. And everybody knows that except the people who listen to the MSNBC, the MSN mainstream media. They are so evil that they can make victims of their crimes seem like they are the bad guys. This is why we got to understand what the empire is. It is the most evil country on the planet. I was watching a video with Redacted Tonight, I think it was. And then actually they had people, a couple of guys in there admitting that the empire is the one that starts all of the troubles. And not just us saying that. There's a lot of people saying that the empire is the most evilest country on the planet. And then they run around claiming that they're Christians. Biden, the Catholic, go to church every week. But him and his government does more evil on the planet than anybody else. Is that what a Christian would do? Go and bomb up people 10,000 miles away and sit back and laugh? Would Jesus go and steal somebody else's oil? I mean, you read about Jesus in the Bible. Would he do something like that? Would he cut off other countries so nobody else could buy anything from a poor country? Would Jesus do that? Would Jesus go and rob a poor man? Would Jesus go and bomb up a bunch of Palestinians that don't have anything? Would Jesus give the empire's little brother, M16, to blow up a bunch of children, a bunch of orphanages in Palestine? Now, would Jesus actually do? Would he really do that? One needs to think of these things when you hear these people prancing all over the television and we're a Christian nation and we won't do this and we do that and here's another thing. Jesus talked about against the rich man. Would Jesus do that? Would Jesus give the rich man the M16 to shoot people protesting with a sign? From what I read about Jesus, and what we know, he was a righteous man. He did good around the planet. He never told anybody to go and attack somebody. He just didn't do stuff like that. Matter of fact, from what we read about Jesus, he said for the rich man to take all of his wealth, give it away, and give it to the poor. Now, would Biden do that? Would Joe Biden actually do something like that? Would the Pope do something like that? He got more money than anybody on the planet. Him and the Catholic Church got more money than anybody on the planet. Would he do something like that? Are you back, brother?
This is
No, I guess not. Well,
man. They are. Can you hear me?
I
Can you
can
hear
hear
me?
you. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
But you can't see me. All right. They're
I
messing
can't.
with my camera. They're messing. All right. They're messing with my camera. Yeah, they're messing with my camera and they're freezing the frames and I'm not doing this. They're doing this. I'm trying to get my face on the screen,
Well,
but they are doing this. I
well,
guess they
maybe.
said we've had our time with Rashid. Now we're gonna mess with the other Rashid.
Well, it's usually the other way around. As soon as I show my face, they start throwing rocks at me. They don't want me to say one word. But maybe this is how we have to proceed. Proceed.
So
Maybe they can see this mug here and they can't see yours.
Yeah.
But as I was talking a few minutes
Well,
ago.
listen, I want to apologize. Hold, let me give an apology to everybody, and then you can finish your thought. I want to apologize to everyone who's watching the stream. They are doing everything in their power to prevent this stream from being successful. They're doing everything in their power to prevent us from going live and doing and having a normal stream like everybody else. It's not that we're talking about sex, violence, rock and roll, and sport and play. We're trying to inform the people on things that matter in life, things that go right to the core of their lives and the security of their lives. And these are the games that we have to get around that they continue to play. Go ahead, Rashid.
As I was talking before you was on your little hiatus here, I was talking about how Jesus was a righteous man, right? Jesus wouldn't go and bomb up somebody, send some M16 to kill up people walking around protesting with a sign, and then sit back and mow them all down and sit back and start laughing. Jesus, matter of fact, Jesus talked about giving all of your money if you was a rich man to the poor.
Right.
Come pick up your cross and follow in. Jesus didn't say nothing about what the so-called Christians do. But yet and still everybody hoodwinked on that stuff.
Yeah. It's again the show that we wanted to do, and we're trying. And what you're doing, you're hitting right on the money and what you're talking about. I wanted to go more in depth on that, but it seems like that would not be possible due to the fact that they continue to do everything they can to stop the show. But we're going to play through the pain. This is like when you get hurt on the football field. Maybe they'll take my face and put it back on the screen. I'm going to talk about football for a minute. When you get hurt.
or either have that, what was that, some special, this Beyonce special with her sitting up there half nude and all that stuff, and then everybody and his brother-in-law sitting up watching that foolishness.
Yeah. So listen,
maybe
we're like,
can you go out and get Beyonce's face and stick it on the screen? Maybe they'll put you back on.
Hey, well, listen. Right now, one of the major players on the team, which is myself, I'm hurting right now because they hit me with an illegal blow. But I'm gonna play through the pain, and we're gonna continue until we get this touchdown. All right. So everybody, please.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know what they say, that all is fair and fighting. If he hit you below the bow a couple of times, you just gotta suck it up and take it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what is this thing. So again, I want to get to some things in reality. Let's go to the situation, because the name of the show is On the Edge. So we're going to talk about what's pushing the world over this edge, because right now in geopolitics and economics and regular nation to nation and domestic politics and in culture, everyone right now is standing on the edge, and all is needed is a breeze to blow them over. We're standing on the precipice of war. We're standing on the precipice of a global famine. We're standing on the precipice of a cultural revolution. We're standing on the precipice of universal change. Listen to me good. Universal change. Never in the annals of the last 6,000 years has there ever been something like this. Even if you look at the economic scholars and how they're telling you that there's so many black swans that are that they're looking at, that either one can tip the scales in the balance. As a matter of fact, I do believe that even Joe Biden had to say that we're at an inflection point. We're, I don't know what's going on now. Oh, an Amber Alert or something. Um, well, they just keep throwing stuff at me. But anyway, um, even Joe Biden said that we're standing on, we're at an inflection point, something that I've been using for the last 12 or 13 years, telling the people that the world has now reached an inflection point. And for those of you who don't know what inflection point is, let's go to the dictionary, okay? Hold on one second. Let me move this out of the way. Because I'm going to still cook. I'm going to still cook. All right? So, let's see. According to Google's dictionary, inflection point, a point of a curve at which a change in the direction of curvature occurs. It says, in business, a time of significant change in a situation or a turning point. Well, what we're watching right now is a turning point in global finance, in global politics, where people go for education, where people go for guidance. The stewards are being removed and new stewards are put in place. Do you see the Western world being rejected by the global South? Remember, they used to just disregard anyone that wasn't European, American, Australian, New Zealand, or Canadian. They would just disregard them, and they would talk to the world as if they were the world, even though everyone knew that composition of nations, America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and Europe, all comprised a small portion of the global population. I do believe that China alone has more people than all of the nations that I just added together, just say it. So when you hear the West talk about the civilized world, that is a code word for white world. This is true, and we've had multiple scholars speak on this. So what we're looking at is a transformation from a completely dominated world of politics, economics, culture, and military by the former colonial powers into a new paradigm. And this new paradigm has multiple centers of power, multiple poles of power. This is unacceptable to the Western world, and specifically and especially to America and Great Britain. So what we're watching is the world being pushed over the edge, close to war. Now, I want to read something to you, okay? Don't mind not seeing my ugly mug. Just listen to what is being said. Excuse me. On RT, they put out an article today, all right? And this article is titled, Russia Warns of Direct Clash with U.S. Washington is seeking a deterrence advantage over Russia, which could cause an outright war, Moscow has warned. The U.S. has unleashed a total hybrid war against Russia and is putting the two nuclear nations on a path to direct confrontation. The Russian foreign minister has said. It claims Washington's demands for nuclear inspection in Russia are cynical, considering its obvious assistance in Ukrainian attacks against Russia's strategic nuclear forces. Now, before we go further, what Russia is saying about that is that they know that America had a hand in not only supplying weapons, but guiding those weapons to try to attack 2 or 3 of Russia's strategic nuclear bases, right? Now, what was more surprising is that Russia didn't respond militarily, because had that been America, America would have responded militarily if Russia had done the same. Just imagine if Russia had helped Syria attack 2 or 3 of America's nuclear bases in the United States. How do you think that would have gone down? Well, Russia, as we told you, does not want war with the U.S. They don't want war with the West. They have to be drugged, screaming and kicking for that war to take place. Because Russia understands that when this war takes place, which it eventually will, it will reduce the Western world to rubble. When I say rubble, I'm talking about they won't have a say in global politics, global finance, the shaping of the world, none of that. You understand? Russia understands this. And unlike what most people say that the nuclear war between Russia and America will wipe out all life, that is an impossibility. And we won't go into the impossibility at this time. But we will go into what is going on with them. They are constantly and continuously at disagreements over the situation at hand. Let's go a little further. It says the allegations were part of the ministry's public comments on the status of the New START Treaty, the last remaining U.S.-Russian agreement on nuclear weapons reduction. According to U.S. media, the Department of State notified the Congress last week that Russia was in non-compliance due to a refusal to facilitate inspections on its soil. Now, I want you to understand what is going on. America is looking to justify the removal of the last nuclear or global treaty between the two largest nuclear powers on the planet. And what she's doing, she's helping Ukraine in a war, publicly saying that she's arming Ukraine, and then covertly using her soldiers and NATO soldiers to use the weapons that the West supplied to attack Russia with Ukrainian uniforms on. And at the same time, want to be able to go into Russia and inspect Russia's military and nuclear facilities. Now, you tell me how insane that is. But in the mind of a lunatic, that's sane. Go ahead, Rashid.
In the same time, tell the rest of the world we're not fighting Russia.
Yeah, at the same time. But you want me to allow you into my most secure military bases so that you can be able to target these bases by saying that you're not targeting them and it's Ukraine targeting them, even though you're supplying the weapons to Ukraine and you're supplying the troops. What I was looking at it at a video yesterday. This was a conference that took place over in Europe, and they had a translation, and they were showing NATO's like officers in uniform and NATO uniform, and they were asking them about fighting Russia. Would that push a Russia-Western nuclear war? And he said no. And they asked him why, and I'm paraphrasing. And he says, I'm a NATO soldier now. I take off my uniform. I sign a contract. Now I'm a contract soldier or mercenary. So if you catch me, NATO has plausible deniability. So once we supply weapons to them, we know that it takes years upon years for them to learn the weapons. So what we do, we supply the weapons, then we supply the troops. We allow these specialists to resign from the military, sign a contract, and then go and put on a uniform of Ukraine, and then say that they're Ukrainian forces or they're contracted to the Ukrainian military. Man, if this is not pushing the norms, you tell me what is. So go ahead.
And think the Russians are stupid enough to go for it.
Right. So you can only do this so many times. But I was looking at that, and I'm gonna try to find that video. Maybe I can play it if I can find it. But it'll astonish you, the brashness of these people sitting. They have an audience of people, and I think it was at a think tank. They have an audience of so-called scholars and journalists of the West, and they're smiling and laughing and talking to each other bluntly about the situation, as if Russia can't pick up this video or as Russia can't see what's going on. The madness in these people. You want to say something before I continue reading this, Rashid?
But then again, remember, they are the exceptional ones.
Yeah.
From me, there is none. I am, and there is none other. I can do this, but nobody else around the planet can do anything about this because I'm exception.
Nebuchadnezzar.
That's right. That's the same guy.
But for those of you who don't know that reference, when you hear Rashid and I say, I am and there is none other, look at what my hands have wrought. And then when you hear us say Nebuchadnezzar, that's in the Bible. That's biblical. So if you go read the history of Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar and read the history of Babylon, America's history fits so perfectly with the history of Babylon and the Babylonian Empire. That's why you hear us say that a lot. But let's go further. It says, the Russian foreign ministry said that that was not true, since the treaty allows suspension of inspection. Washington was the first to start barring Russian monitors from doing their jobs in the U.S. it alleges. Now, this is something. And notice, this did not happen in a void. America prevented Russian forces from monitoring America's nuclear facilities and the nuclear weapons grade plutonium and stuff like that. And then immediately after that, said that Russia was in non-compliance with the agreement. Then right after that, the NATO secretary, Jens Stoltenberg, said that we stand with America. Russia is in non-compliance of his obligations to the nuclear treaty. Then after that, America comes public and says that Russia will not allow us to inspect. They're breaking all the rules to the international treaty that we had. This game, you can see America play this game in every treaty that she signed. She signs, she brings up the treaty. She gets somebody to sign the treaty when it's advantageous to her. When it's no longer advantageous to her, then she uses excuse after excuse to justify her refusal to comply with the treaty, and then she justifies finally just removing the treaty or nullifying the treaty. Didn't she just do that with the JCPOA with Iran?
Wait a minute. Let's go back to her history. How many treaties did she sign with the Indians of America? Hundreds of them. Broke every last one. So the question of it is, why would anybody with half of a brain believe anything America had any time in history?
So let's go a little further. It says, the ministry said that created obvious unilateral benefits for the U.S. and prompted a response in kind by Moscow. The 2010 treaty was signed in a different environment and is based on the notion that the U.S. and Russia are equal partners who seek to build trust and improve global security through disarmament, as reflected in its text, the ministry explained. But now that Washington has declared the strategic defeat of Russia as its goal and ramped up tensions in all aspects of bilateral relations, there can be no business as usual with the U.S., according to the statement from the foreign ministry. It goes and says, until Washington revises its hostile stance regarding Russia and drops the policy of increasing the threats towards our national security, Moscow will consider any proposed gestures of goodwill under the nuclear treaty unjustified, untimely, and uncalled for. The Russian foreign ministry.
Wait. So Russia have came over to the side of the American Indians that America speak with spark tongue, huh?
Whoa!
They brought you back.
My God. Oh man, I tell you.
They put you in the penalty box for a minute.
Yeah, I hope they're not doing that. For those of you who are listening, I hope they're not doing it tomorrow when we interview Scott Ritter, and we'll be interviewing him at a different time tomorrow because of schedules. It'll be 8 Central, 9 Eastern time, and that's the time that he requested because of previous obligations that he had prior to booking the show. Okay, so tomorrow we'll be doing an interview with Scott Ritter at 8 Eastern, 9 Central. No, 8. No, 9. Is it 8 or 9? I'll have to look at that. Let me see real quick. I think it's 8 Central, 9. Yeah, 8 Central, 9 Eastern. That's what we'll be doing. So let me finish the last part of this article. It's only like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences later. It says, the Russian ministry didn't elaborate on which strategic nuclear forces objects the Ukraine side attacked with U.S. help, which allegedly involved military, technical, and information intelligence aspects. You know why? Because if Russia had revealed that, then the Russian public would have demanded a military response. And Russia is trying its best to avoid a military response, but they can keep on and keep. They don't understand. See, this is there's an old saying, "Know thy enemy." And right now, Russia still believes that it can reason with America, and still believes that they can reason with NATO. America only pauses or halts her offense against you when it is a detriment to her, or when she can lose big on this side. When she feels that you are just bluffing, she will continue until you smack her in the mouth. Then she'll say, "Hold on, whoa, wait, let's talk. Let's talk before things spiral." This is a ploy so that she uses these strategic pauses to strengthen her so that she can benefit in the long run. And once it's no longer beneficial, then she goes back to doing what she's done. She never completely halts. Go ahead.
It reminds me, it's like Godzilla walking on eggs. That's what Russia is doing.
Yeah.
An impossible task.
Right. And so let's go a little further. The Russian Defense Ministry has previously blamed Ukraine for 2 attacks against Ingles Air Base in Saratov region. Both happened in December and reportedly involved Soviet-made long-range drones. The first incident coincided with a similar attack against the, I can't pronounce that airfield, in Ryazan region of Ukraine, of Russia. Both Russian airfields host strategic bomber planes, which can carry and deploy nuclear weapons in addition to conventional air-launched missiles. Now, here's the thing. Let's say that America was successful in carrying out strikes and taking out some of Russia's nuclear bombers. Do they understand that then Russia would have been forced to not only hit Ukraine, but they would have been forced to strike U.S. and NATO forces? They would have been forced to. If they should be thanking Russian air defense system for taking the drones out, because if the drones would have successfully taken out strategic bombers, Russia would have had to act militarily. There.
You're dealing with irrational people. All of Russia's nuclear bombs and stuff is not in Russia. She got submarines going all over the place.
Yeah.
How you gonna hit them every? It is like somebody is pushing them to do these things. Some higher power is pushing them to do these things, and they have no way to stop it. The stupidity and the madness is off the charts. What they're doing. I can bomb. Well, you hear these American pilots. Well, we'll have to take out Russia's weapon. We'll have to sink Russia's They can sink yours too. It's like some madman is running around with a gun, and I'll do this. Well, other people got guns too.
Yeah.
But then again, once you're exceptional, nobody else can do anything but you.
They have become inebriated. Again, as I often say, they have become inebriated off the thoughts and the visions of the power that they used to have and the nation that they used to be. At one time, they were unrivaled, but that time has come to an end. And it is almost like a bully that has bullied all of the children. And one kid on the playground knew that he could challenge the bully, but he allowed the bully to go so far. And now he's standing up and saying, listen, enough is enough. You're not going to bother these people over here. You're not going to bother, because if you bother these people over here, then the next thing, when you take them out, you're coming for me. So now we're going to have a united front. And now this bully is lashing out. The bully is throwing water balloons, rocks, and everything, trying to make, he's just going for broke because he wants to cement his power and his position. But at the same time, he is so irrational because he has enjoyed a position of prominence so long, and that he knows that it's coming to an end. And let me say this so that YouTube maybe can keep my mug up on the screen a little bit longer. Let me use sport as an analogy so that I don't get knocked off again. Again, it is almost like a boxer who has been the champion of his division for so long, and he has beat all comers. on all of them. But he sees this young and up and coming guy that has the tenacity, the intensity, the drive, and the fortitude that he had. The difference is the guy's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, is a little bit harder, right? And has a more solid chin than he has. He sees this guy going through all of his opponents like a hot knife through butter. Yeah, the champion talks big, but the champion understands that that's a threat right there.
You know, and when you get into the fight, he hits the champion and real hard, and the champion smiles to try to make me think that it didn't really hurt me.
And then and 4 rounds later, the champion takes a knee for a minute to catch his breath because those blows continue to hammer him, and he can't take it. And this is what we're watching in real time. This is an apt analogy. This is what we're watching in real time concerning the fall of America and the collapse of the American empire globally. So there's so much to this. I just want to go back to something Rashid said. As I was thinking over what Rashid said about the Native Americans and the Indians and how America just lies and just lies and lies and lies. It brought me back to the situation with Iraq, right? Remember, Vladimir Putin had a problem with Iraq, with the way they did Saddam Hussein too. Remember, he had a problem with that, and he voiced that publicly and face to face with George Bush when they met, and he also voiced it to his contemporaries that came after him. Now, why is that so strategic? Because if you look at all of the nations that America is attacking, all of these nations buy military hardware from Russia. All of them. All of them have some kind of friendship with Russia. Again, you remember what we were talking about, how the bully was strategically taking out the people so that when he faces his rival, he believes that if I can sneak on my rival and I take all his oppositions out the way and I get this first strike on my rival, I can knock him out. Isn't that the plan that America is to remove all Russia's allies and then sneak attack Russia with a blinding first strike to eliminate them as a peer competitor militarily? Didn't they say that in their doctrine? Didn't they openly state that they wanted to surround Russia? They wanted to remove all Russian allies, including Ukraine, and then place missiles and anti-missile defense systems all around Russia. So when they do that, they can hit Russia with a lightning fast strike to decapitate Russia's nuclear arsenal so that they can render it helpless and feeble. Didn't they say that?
And then they run around.
Same thing.
And then they run around saying that they're for free trade, right? Cut off Russia's military, but they wanted what they're the only ones in the market. Russia can't sell anything, but we can sell. Everybody come to us, but we're a free trader. Like I'm telling you, go back to what Jesus did, right? Jesus didn't tell nobody to go bomb somebody, but then again, he's the run around claim he's the number one Jesus, man.
And all you have to do when people say that, this is what I tell people. Because America professes herself to be the most Christian nation on the planet. And in Congress, you have all of these people thumping their chest talking about they're the Christians and they uphold Christian values when they are the most corrupt and vicious people behind doors. And all one has to do, Rashid gave you the clue to knowing would Jesus do that? Did Jesus do that? So if you follow the man, see, again, let's go to the dictionary real quick, because this is something we have to put in the proper perspective. Okay, hold on 1 second. I don't want to miss this right here. Okay, all right. According to the dictionary, the word follow, it's a noun. A follower, follower. It's a noun. It says an inherent or devotee of a particular person, cause, or activity. An acolyte, assistant, attendant, satellite, companion, retainer. A person who moves or travels behind someone or something. So a follower is the embodiment of that person that they say they follow. A follower is someone who not only takes on the mind and the thought of that person, but the actions. So now, when you know that, when you see all of these hypocrites in the government saying that they are the most Christian and they uphold Christian values. Look at their policies. And then you can understand that they are Christian only in word, because Christian means to be crystallized into one. They are not crystallized into one. They are very divisive, and they love to divide and conquer. How can that be? How can those two be the same when they're diametrically opposed?
In
So
the
we're
Bible
looking at
also,
the exposure of American politics, American politicians, and the American empire only using Jesus when it suits them. What about when you bomb? What about the occupy? Would Jesus go into Syria and occupy Syria and steal all the oil and the gas and the wheat and the corn and refuse to let the Syrian people take back their own land? Would Jesus do that? But that's an American policy. And almost every U.S. senator and congressman has allowed that to happen without fail, without demanding that they pull out. What about in Somalia? What about in Yemen? What about in Mali? What about around South and Central America? What about all around the Horn of Africa? What about in Asia and all of these military bases? Would Jesus do that? And if he wouldn't do that, then America's a liar when she says that she follows Jesus.
John McCain, when he had that song "Bomb Iran," would Jesus run around and sing a song like that?
Or Hillary Clinton?
Yeah,
we came, we saw, he died. Remember that when they sodomized Muammar Gaddafi and they raped? Listen to me good. Would a Christian nation do that? They gave the order to not just depose him and kill his children. They sodomized him before they killed him.
What's her name? Madeleine Albright. Do you think it's worth deposing Saddam Hussein and 500,000 children died? Yes. Now would Jesus say that?
And think about this. Didn't Jesus, God, didn't his father destroy Sodom and Gomorrah for sodomy? Huh?
Sodom is running rampant in America.
But what about this? Again, didn't God, he hated that so much, according to the Bible, you Christians. He hated sodomy so much that he razed Sodom and Gomorrah to the ground. And American policy was to not only depose and embarrass Muammar Gaddafi, but their stated policy, they sodomized him with the barrel of a gun. Is that not anti-Jesus? So if that is anti-Jesus, then how in the hell can they put Jesus on their mantle as they trumpet around the world? They're giving a bad name to a great man. So this is politics. Go ahead.
But the scriptures talk about people that do exactly what you said. Claim Jesus with their mouths, but don't do anything that he taught.
And what did he say on the day of judgment when they say, Lord, Lord, didn't we do this? Depart from me, you workers of iniquity. I know you not. So this is what is going on with the American empire. Her power, her influence is fleeting. It's departing her because she did not live up to the standard that she professed. She has been the global instigator, tool, and maker. No, must have made somebody freezing my picture again. I guess StreamYard said, oh, no.
That's right. You've been hitting it a little bit too hard today, bro.
StreamYard took my picture down. Right?
Yeah, the guy was listening to that, getting madder. Yank that thing, get that face off of here.
StreamYard took my picture down. I know everybody's laughing that's watching. I know it. Oh, it's amazing. But hey, you're not hurting my feelings. But again, let's go into something. But see, when you point out this hypocrisy and you point out the insanity of the policies, and then you give the people the definitions of words that you hear other people say, when you really get the definition and you can actually understand what they say and how diametrically opposed they are to the things that they profess, then guess what happens? Your soul becomes clear. Your mind becomes clear because you're no longer accepting what they're putting out. And so, yeah, they took my picture down. I'm ugly in the house, so it don't matter. So listen, long as the truth is beautiful, and that's all that matters. The truth is beautiful. So look, we're going to continue to give you this truth, and we're going to continue to make people mad, and we're going to continue to probably get thrown off the air. All that is a part of the plan.
Talk about sports some more. Maybe they put you back.
Hey, well, listen, I'm gonna talk about sports after I play this video about Iraq and America. Going back to that I was saying before. Rashid said, "Would Jesus do that?" So when we look at this, look at the lies. Tony Blair, war criminal, who used to be the prime minister of the UK, George Bush, Colin Powell, all of these people who are held in high esteem in America, these people are murderers and war criminals. The record sets it straight. You can deny it, but it sets it straight. And I'm going to let you look at the video about how they lied and bombed Iraq. See, this is what I'm saying. This goes right to the source of the show. A world on edge. We're on the edge. We're on the precipice of something, and it's something of the greatest magnitude that most people cannot comprehend, because they have been inundated and inculcated with the ideas of the rich or of the privileged, and they can't see a day where America is not reigning and ruling, or the Western world does not have dominion and influence over the politics globally. But that day has quickly approached, and we're watching it. I want you to listen to this.
Once again,
Ukraine could be set to receive deadly radioactive weapons from the West as part of the latest surge of weaponry in the NATO proxy war on Russia. Moscow says it would consider such munitions a dirty bomb, warning Western sponsors of Kiev's war machine.
Now, see, I played another video. You see what they did? They put this video up.
They switched.
Now we're going to go back to this video, but that's not the video I clicked on. My mouse is way down the page. I didn't click on that video. So that's to let you know what they're doing to the show. So again, let's go to something real quick. Here is what I clicked on. So let's see if they're going to allow it to play this time, now that I blew the whistle on them. So listen.
One of the most worrisome things that emerges from the thick intelligence file we have on Iraq's biological weapons is the existence of mobile production facilities used to make biological agents. We have first-hand descriptions of biological weapons factories on wheels and on rails.
It's not like justifying an invasion of Iraq to the world mattered that much to the U.S., though. After all, then-President George W. Bush already had plans to invade the sovereign Middle Eastern nation. Claims that Baghdad was stockpiling illegal weapons and developing its nuclear program were aplenty. And the catch-fear phrase, weapons of mass destruction, had already been popularized. Evidence, however, was either lacking or, in Powell's case, fabricated. Like the vial of white powder he so confidently waved in the world's face as he accused Saddam Hussein of having amassed titanic reserves of chemical weapons.
When Iraq finally admitted having these weapons in 1995, the quantities were vast. Less than a teaspoon of dry anthrax, a little bit about this amount. This is just about the amount of a teaspoon. Less than a teaspoonful of dry anthrax in an envelope shut down the United States Senate in the fall of 2001. This forced several hundred people to undergo emergency medical treatment and killed 2 postal workers.
Powell pointed the finger at faulty intelligence after it became clear that there was no merit to America's accusations. He said he was very disappointed.
I'm very concerned. When I made that presentation in February 2003, it was based on the best information that the Central Intelligence Agency made available to me. But it turned out that the sourcing was inaccurate and wrong, and in some cases, deliberately misleading. And for that, I am disappointed and I regret it.
Oh, how quickly the U.S.'s closest ally jumped into the bloodbath at Washington's command. But when all was said and done, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair said it was all in good faith, since the West needed to bring down evil Saddam. After trying to deflect blame, though, Blair also said he was very sorry.
I did not mislead this country. I made the decision in good faith on the information I had at the time. And I believe that it is better that we took that decision. And a nation whose people we wanted to set free and secure from the evil of Saddam became instead victim to sectarian terrorism. For all of this, I express more sorrow, regret, and apology than you may ever know or can believe.
Other world leaders sensed something foul from the get-go, which is why Powell sought fit to give his speech in the first place. France, Germany, and Russia all decided they would vote against the U.S.'s hawkish initiatives at the United Nations.
Die Welt steht am Vorabend eines Krieges.
The world is close to war. My question was and still is, does the threat coming from the Iraqi dictator justify a war which will kill thousands of children, women and men? My answer is no.
No matter what the circumstances, we'll vote no, because we consider, at this time, that there is no place for going to war to achieve the objective that we all want at the moment, which is the disarmament of Iraq.
Military action against Iraq is a huge political mistake. I've already said about the humanitarian side of the issue.
On top of that, the UN's former chief weapons inspector to Iraq, Scott Ritter, said Iraq's capability to have weapons of mass destruction had been eliminated by December of 1998. It's no wonder Ritter saw Powell's accusations against Baghdad as relying only on circumstantial evidence.
Powell just keeps hitting you with circumstantial evidence, and he confuses people, and he lied to people, he misled people.
Fabricating evidence, lying, killing hundreds of thousands of people. Another stark reminder of the lengths Washington is willing to go to when the success of its foreign policy agenda is at stake.
So, do you see the lies, the betrayal, and then the so-called trying to be, you saw Tony Blair trying to act like his feelings was hurt that somebody questioned his motive on Iraq and talking about we had to free these people. Now, their freedom has caused instability. The freedom that America and NATO brings to nations caused division, instability, war, suffering, exploitation. All we have to do, if you don't want to look at an African nation, look at Yugoslavia. How they partitioned, they bombed Yugoslavia, then they partitioned it into multiple states, and now these multiple states are at odds against each other and under direct U.S. military rule right now. That's American democracy. That's Western democracy. That's Western freedom. You are free to do what the West tells you to do.
Or else you'll get killed.
Or you'll get killed. And they're doing this. They rinse, wash, and repeat over and over and over and over again.
You know, when I was listening to Colin Powell talking about Iraq, have a file of it. Are you back? They brought you back?
Come back. Oh, snaps. Oh, snaps. They let me back.
I was thinking about this when Colin Powell was saying that about they got a little vial, as if Saddam Hussein put the anthrax in the United States Congress or whatever to kill off 2 people or whatever. Who is it? Talk about weapons of mass destruction. How many weapons do you have, Mr. White Man of America? Oh, I only got 6 billion of them. But if Iraq get 1, they should be bombed into the Stone Age.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he called himself a fair-minded man.
Yeah.
I'm going to bomb you for 1 that I think you may have. But how many do you have? Oh, 5 or 10,000 of them.
And then, and here's the mind state of these people in power. This is the mind state of the Western world. What you just said, I'm going to bomb you for thinking that you may have 1. And then when they're asked, well, why do you have so many? Oh, it's for national security reasons. But then when they ask, why can't they have them? Oh, they're a threat. They may use them. But you used them. It's no may in it. You have used them. So why aren't you considered a threat and must be disarmed? But they have never used them. They have never had them. And even if they were to go through them and get them, why aren't they allowed to have 1? You know why? Because if they have 1, it prevents America from dominating. It prevents the Western world from dominating. You see, with all their provocations in North Korea, they haven't gone in North Korea.
That's right.
They haven't gone in there. They can talk a big game, but they understand that the North Korean military and the North Korean government is not playing when they say that if you attack us,
we're gonna use
you're gonna have hell to pay. And now North Korea not only has the weapons. They have married the warheads to the missiles. And that is why America is pulling back a little bit. She continues to provoke, but she understands that an attack on North Korea would mean thermonuclear war. And check this out. What do you think China's response? Because remember, China has what they call an eternal, they say an eternal treaty with North Korea, that if North Korea should be attacked, then the Chinese are obligated to come to their aid militarily.
Didn't they do it last time? When America overran them? Those were Chinese that came in waves to push America back.
Yes. Remember, hey, if you remember the documentary they had about that, one U.S. soldier said he looked up in the mountains. He said, and then he looked up again, and the whole mountains turned to number Chinese, and they were coming over the mountain.
Wait a minute. I had an elderly brother tell me that, because he was in Korea, and he said he was part of this black battalion that went past the line, and 1 million Chinese surrounded him. And so me and brother Jimmy said, well, what did you do? He said, we had to fight our way out of there. He said, nobody was coming to get us.
Yeah. And my brother, he didn't fight in Korea, but he was stationed on the what is it, 32nd, 33rd parallel, right there where it divides North and South Korea. Now my uncle fought in Vietnam, but but again, why do you think America continues to bluster with North Korea, but won't go in there? Because she understands that to do that would risk all-out war. And I'm talking all-out war.
And that Kim and them, they are not playing. They're not gonna say one thing. Well, you keep on, you keep saying things, and they keep doing it. You hit me, I'm gonna hit you. That's it.
And that was shown. What was it? A few years ago, that was shown when they shot up one of those warships that traversed the waters. They shot it up. They told them, if you enter our waters, we were going to do X, Y, and Z, and they did it. But that was pushed up under the rug with the Western media, though. You know, they didn't say much about that.
So this is the reason why Hezbollah and Iran, so they can't get a slingshot, but Israel can get everything they want.
And listen, right? And check it. What's even more is this: they must abide by international law, but America, Israel, and NATO confront international law, confront sovereignty and everything.
Because I'm exceptional. That's the reason why I can do that, and you're not. I am the shining city on a hill, and you living in a jungle.
It is absolutely amazing, and I want you to look at the mind state of how nations are starting to wake up to this. Because remember, we talk about Africa, we talk about Latin America, we talk about Asia, we talk about Europe, we talk about all of the continents and the surrounding nations and stuff. But I want you to understand that it is no longer where nations are afraid to buck up against the West or buck up against American arrogance and intransigence. They are now calling America out, and I'm going to show you. This is in South Africa, and this is what they're saying about the war. This is what they're saying about Russia. This is what they're saying about America and NATO, and how it is what we call NATO over here, the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, NATO, the acronym NATO. They say the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but we termed it the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. Look at what they are stating about American intransigence and NATO arrogance and thirst for unquenchable war. Oh, watch this. Watch this.
NATO, by the way, is not a political alliance like our tripartite alliance. It's a war machine. It's a killing machine. But no sooner had the Soviet Union collapsed, President Clinton attacks Yugoslavia, and NATO breaks up Yugoslavia. And they continue to move eastward. Until now, NATO wants to then make Ukraine a member of NATO and threatened directly the security of Russia. You can never, those who may remember, I was still very young. I was 4 years old. 1962, if I'm not mistaken, the Cuban Missile Crisis was about the United States objecting the Soviet Union putting missiles on Cuban soil. Because the United States has got this thing called the Monroe Doctrine, that the Latin American and Southern American sphere is by right the sphere of the United States for the last 200 years. You can't go and put arms as Russia in Mexico. The United States will not allow that, not just because that it has got a right. Comrade Slava knows we are not friends of the current Russian government and the Russian oligarchy, but Russia has a legitimate concern about its own security. And that is why we support our own South African government when it says the solution to this problem is a negotiated settlement. And part of that negotiated settlement is that the United States and NATO can extend no further than where it is now, because this is a war machine. And Russia has a right to actually defend itself. I know Russia invaded, Russia did this. The SACP and ANC are saying this because they were supported by the Soviet Union. For God's sake, Russia is not the Soviet Union. Are we afraid to say we're supported by the Soviet Union? No. We would never have been free had the Soviet Union not been with us. That's the truth, comrades, about what's happening in the Ukraine. But there are many contradictions. I don't have time to explain them. Read them here. It is not in the interest of the people of Ukraine to have NATO forces there. But that government of the Ukraine is acting in its own narrow selfish interests, endangering ordinary Ukrainian people. They banned the Communist Party, by the way, in the Ukraine. There is no Communist Party. Those are neo-fascists. We are not taking a side when we are saying that we are speaking the truth. But there are contradictions, comrades. A lot of Europe relies on gas from Russia. That is why they say there are sanctions against Russia, but they are saying, no, Nord Stream 1, which is gas from Russia to parts of Europe, must be reopened. And the United States now goes to Venezuela, which it has sanctions, to negotiate supply of oil from Venezuela. It's nice to be the United States. You can love and hate as you wish, like a real hegemon. Now, comrades, what also this is pointing to is that the influence of the United States is beginning to decline globally, and it's becoming dangerous. We never thought the US would risk a war in Ukraine facing Russia. Russia is no small fry. Russia is a nuclear power. The risk that the United States and NATO are taking to place the world in this situation shows that there is an element of desperation by the United States that feels challenged by China in the main. That's why Zoom is nice these days. We had some interaction with our comrades in the Communist Party of the Russian Federation. They simply say, comrades in the SICP, this war with Russia by NATO is just a by the way. The real ultimate goal is the defeat of China.
Okay, so he said a lot in there. And see, these are people who are in power or who enjoy influence in the largest economy in Africa, and is one of the main engines of the BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, the BRICS. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Okay? Now, he spoke on how America they never thought that America would risk war with Russia in Ukraine. and how this shows us that America is in decline, her power is in decline, and it reeks of desperation. What have we been telling you? That she's become illogical and irrational due to desperation. Haven't we been telling you that? And listen what the word desperation means. Desperation is a noun. It means a state of despair, typically one which results in rash or extreme behavior. Hopelessness, despair, distress, anguish, pain, agony, torment. So her mind is tormented by the fact, and she's feeling despair and anguish and distress over the reality that she can no longer submit her power and her will on every nation on the planet globally. And it is causing her people, these think tanks and these government organizations to bluff, and the bluff could lead to a military confrontation. As a matter of fact, when we look at the desperation in America, with American policies, that play the video. I'm gonna play the video because this has everything to do with what he talked about with the desperation of America. Now, if my screen goes out again, I want you all to look at this. Where is it at? Where is it? All right, let's see if we can turn it this way. All right, I want you all to look at this. So this will let you know that it is not us. It is not our internet connection. It is not. I want you to look close to. You see that green dot? And look what it says next to that green dot. Excellent connection. Okay. So when my face leaves the screen or it freezes or what, it's not us. It is not us. And for those of you who are joining us, we will have Scott Ritter, but we'll be doing it at an earlier time than our normal time at 11:30 and 11:45. We'll be doing it at 8 o'clock Central Time, 8 a.m. Central tomorrow, which is 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll have former UN inspector, weapons inspectors chief, and former Marines intelligence officer, Scott Ritter. Rashid, I know you want to say something, but go ahead and say something, because it's something I want to say also.
We're not children. We know that they're monitoring us. It's some guy that's listening to what we say. And if we say something he don't like, then he pulls these games on. So come on, now. We know what they're doing.
Yeah. So he also mentioned something before we go into this clip. You saw the South African leader, one of the South African leaders mentioned this about the Monroe Doctrine. This is something that is kept out of the minds and ears of the American populace, but this has been the United States policy since since 1823, something like that, 1824, 1823, something like that. And essentially it is this, that America considers the entire Western Hemisphere her backyard. She's the house, and the entire Western Hemisphere is her backyard. And no one is able to set up bases or have influence or able to aid any nation in her backyard. That is her. She rules them. That's the Monroe Doctrine. This is a U.S. policy, and it has been instrumental in U.S. politics since President James Monroe.
Now, who gave her this authority? It didn't come from Jesus. Jesus didn't give it to you.
I'm exceptional.
Right? When he came out of Europe and started stealing everybody's lands and all that, Jesus didn't tell him to do that. Did the God of Jesus said, okay, now you can come from Europe and go over there and kill off all them Indians and steal their land? Did he say the same thing about Australia? You can go over there and the Aborigines, kill them off and steal everything they got, then run around call the country Australia. Did the God of Jesus say that?
You know, and on that, I just put keywords in the Google thing, and it talks about, it said, what is Monroe Doctrine in simple terms? I had the year right on the money, 1823. In 1823, U.S. President James Monroe proclaimed the U.S. protector of the Western Hemisphere by forbidding European powers and others from colonizing additional territories in the Americas. In return, Monroe committed to not interfere in the affairs, conflicts, and extent colonial enterprises of European states.
And he lied there.
She lied again. Nullified their own doctrine. Nullified their own doctrine. But at the time, America had become, and upwards to what, roughly 15 years ago, America had become so powerful that no nation could challenge her really on her doctrine. But now it's almost like she's like this. And now nations big and small, powerful and weak, are standing up and calling out her hypocrisy. And this right here, this video goes to something that what you heard one of the African leaders say about American arrogance and how NATO is a war party and how NATO in America, they're hell bent on war. Now, this comes in the same line of thought when he says we never thought that America would do what she's doing with Russia and Ukraine and how it's pushing the world to war. If you think that's something, I want you to listen to this right here.
In other news from the conflict, Ukraine has hit an industrial facility in Russia's Belgorod region overnight. That's according to the region's governor. Fuel tanks were reportedly on fire after the strike. The blaze is said to be contained as firefighters quickly tackled the flames. There were no reports of casualties and staff were safely evacuated. This latest attack comes as Washington has pledged to send ground-launched small-diameter bomb long-range rockets to Ukraine, which would enable Kiev to strike much further than current weapons. Moscow has criticized the weapons delivery, saying that U.S. is pushing Ukraine to attack Russia.
Washington sees no boundaries in seeking to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia. The transfer of increasingly powerful weapons to the Kyiv regime is a deliberate escalation of the conflict by the United States. The administration has put almost everything on the Ukrainian cards: its own national authority, the money of American taxpayers, and the lives of Ukrainian soldiers. At this rate, the United States could go to absolute madness, like giving fighter jets. Washington is de facto inciting its protégés to attack Russian regions.
The ground-launched small-diameter bomb has a range of 150 kilometers, twice the distance of Ukraine's current HIMARS rocket launchers, also supplied by the U.S. The long-range missiles are said to be highly accurate and can be fired from hidden positions to avoid detection. Washington says they will enable Ukraine to attack Russian territories, including Crimea.
The small-diameter bomb in the latest Ukraine aid package has the potential to target Crimea. Is that the intent behind providing it now?
So thanks for the question, Joe. So yes, as part of the USAI package, we will be providing ground-launched small-diameter bombs to Ukraine. This gives them a longer-range capability, long-range fires capability, that will enable them, again, to conduct operations in defense of their country and to take back their sovereign territory in Russian-occupied areas.
We discussed the topic with the coordinator of the International Action Center, Sarah Flounders, who says the U.S. is intent on dragging out the conflict for as long as possible using any means.
The U.S. isn't ignoring the warnings. They are deliberately provoking further and further war. They know the consequences of this, and they're more than willing to push ahead. So there's an enormous number of weapons in the U.S. Inventory. It's a big, lots of choices, but it's clear that each choice is meant to expand the war, to do more damage, not in any way to reach a resolution. It will also mean on Russia's part that they will have to go further into Ukraine in order to secure their borders, Russia's borders. So it's an expansion of the war. It's very dangerous. There's no reason for it. It's more money, but a higher grade of weapons that actually have double the range.
Now, let's just put this in perspective and let this marinate on your brain. America overthrew the Nicaraguan government. They're back in power. America overthrew the Honduras government, right? They overthrew the Argentine government. They overthrew the Brazilian government. They overthrew the Chilean government. They overthrew the Peru government. They overthrew the Bolivian government. And most of those people are back in power. Now, let's use American logic.
Venezuela.
Okay? Oh, in Venezuela. Now let's use logic here. America is saying that they're going to give Ukraine weapons that can strike deep into Russian territory. Now listen to this good. Now, if that is the case, and Russia has already told them the response would be overwhelming, and America continues to push along those lines. If it were me, I'm just saying me. I'm not talking about the Russian military command. I'm not talking about the Russian political class and all that stuff. I'm talking about me as a person, common sense. All right. I know that I have the military and the economic resolve to rebuff, and not only rebuff, but to go off on the offensive if you want to continue to push these lines. So guess what I would do? I would make an agreement with Nicaragua or one of these other nations, and I would immediately deploy at least 2 strategic bombers, multiple warplanes, and at least 2 warships to the ports in three different Latin American nations. And then I would transfer them air defense systems and missiles capable of striking the U.S. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you can't understand my security interests, I don't have no understanding for yours.
You're not exceptional, Brother Rashid. You can't be doing stuff like that. It's against the international laws. The international community would not accept that stuff. If you sit up there and do stuff like that, shame, shame, shame.
And I would let her eat her paper called the Monroe Doctrine. I would say, didn't you just tell me that I'm not allowed to have spheres of influence? Then from this day forward, we don't respect your spheres of influence. From this day forward, we're going to arm these nations to the teeth so that if you try to get involved in these nations, the blowback effect and the ramifications will be overwhelming for you. The only way a bully can be stopped is you got to sock the bully in the mouth where it hurts. You got to sock him where it hurts it. And America shows you that she has no pause button. She has no reverse button. You remember in the days when you had the little stereo players with the tape, and sometimes your reverse button will break, and you could only play the whole tape out and flip it over. And that's what America. She has no reverse. It's just straightforward. So to make her put a reverse button on, I will hold her feet to the fire. This is common sense, but since it's not so common today, what say you on the matter before we play another clip?
Once again, Russia, big Godzilla, and he got a bunch of eggs. They sit around and eat eggs. Russia don't want that. But Russia people are rational. The people in the empire, they're not rational. The only thing, like the old saying, once you walking around with a hammer, you see everything as a nail.
Right.
That's the reason why she's not doing this.
And so we'll watch again. The world is on edge. Everything is on the edge. We are on the edge of collapse, on the edge of civil insurrection, on the edge of war. This is not just a phenomenon that is in America. This is a global or universal phenomenon. Because what we're at a time in history where there's a universal change going on. And the old world, or the old world order, or as they like to say, the rules-based order, quote unquote, has served its purpose. And the whole world is rejecting this hypocritical, racist, arrogant, and hegemonic way of governing. So you're seeing multiple poles or multiples of polarity or power rising up. And this is unacceptable to the American empire. This is unacceptable to the UK because they have many interests in this world order. This is unacceptable to Europe up in Brussels because they have privilege in this order. And all of them are fighting like hell to maintain the privilege that the system of the so-called rules-based order has inherently given to them. So we're going to go further. Now I want you to see I want you to hear what Lavrov said.
One second. One second. As you was talking about the United NATO, for NATO, for any country around the world, when they see NATO coming in talking about I'm gonna help free you, the people need to run for the hills.
Yeah. Look, we're gonna play this of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and what how he described American continuous provocations. And for those of you who are listening, join us tomorrow at 8 a.m. Central Time, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll have former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter on the show again. So please join us for that. And also, if you join us, you'll be able to ask questions in the chat. And when we get to that point, we'll throw your questions to him. All right. So check this out.
Having achieved prosperity largely by pillaging developing countries for many centuries, the West is trying to preserve its dominance and to resolve its development issues and to support the economy on someone other's account. And for this, the West tries to undermine democratic processes around the world and tries to impose to the global majority a neo-colonial world order, saying that it must be rules-based. The rules they make up themselves and that they enforce themselves the way they deem fit. And we can see that the United States and other Western countries that are led by the United States divided the world into a small group of exceptional countries and those that can be guided and governed by this small group. They believe that the world consists of Washington-approved democracies and autocracies, including Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, DPRK, and a number of other countries. The United States and its European allies use the worst colonial practices. Those who do not agree with these rules, who have an independent policies, they face unilateral sanctions, blackmail, intimidations, and threats, and sometimes even are pressured by force. Those who are loyal can do anything they like. Take, for example, the overt support to Ukrainian neo-Nazis who engaged in ethnic cleansing and violence and the racial and ethnic discrimination and have been doing this for a long time now.
So we heard what Sergei Lavrov has to say about the colonialism, the racism. Now, remember on one of our previous shows last week, we proved beyond a shadow of a doubt the connection with NATO, specifically America, Canada, and the lead NATO nations and their connection with fascism. And we also went into the definition of Nazism to find out that fascism is a symptom or one of the parts of Nazism. So we showed you beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is the reason why they have no problem with, on one hand, one day talking bad about Nazism, and then on the other hand, helping the Nazis to ascend to power in Ukraine. That's exactly what they did in Germany under Prescott Bush here in America and his team. They helped to arm the Germans. They helped to finance Germany under Hitler and stuff. But most people have this short memory and they don't want to talk about this. So this is not something that's an anomaly. This is something that is that is inherent in American politics. So they don't see anything wrong with this. Okay. Now, again, if you don't believe of her racist policies, if you don't believe, let's go back to a video that was played. This is a short clip, about a minute and 20 seconds, that was played on other show about how NATO, France, the United States, the European Union, because the European Union is in actuality NATO, and how when nations rise up against their rule, especially former colonial powers, they go to the extremes by putting terrorists in these nations and then claiming to want to be there to fight these terrorists. And then they also go to the extremes to bombing them and to destabilizing them so that they cannot acquire true independence from their colonial masters. So let's look at this, okay?
Have doubts.
A parliamentary leader in the Central African Republic has said an explosive of NATO origin was used to attack a nationally significant textile factory. Authorities have accused an insurgent group of committing the overnight attack with an aircraft last week and have even suspected that NATO member state France could have been involved. The Central African country's government has said the factory is of national importance and the bombing was intended to damage the domestic economy. The leader of the lower house of parliament has condemned the attack and spoken out about the possibility of NATO being involved.
According to the information I've received, this was an M904 bomb, which is used by NATO countries. If indeed a NATO country dropped a bomb on this factory, which is of great importance for agriculture, for farmers who are engaged in cotton production in the Central African Republic, then their lives are in danger. It is unacceptable for any country to drop a bomb on a factory, the only such factory that we have in the CAR. If it really is a NATO country, then it is a shame for them, because NATO countries are developed countries.
And remember, when you look at the NATO insignia, remember on the gray zone, we played a clip from the gray zone and how they reported that that was an inverted swastika and stuff like that. So that you can see the connections with the Nazis. But you can also see the racist exceptionalism at play. If you don't bow to me, I'll bomb your most important textile factory. If you don't bow to me and allow me to do, I'll bomb this and I'll bomb that. All of these, even when they're at odds with each other, they can somehow work together to keep other people from rising. And that's what's going on right now. And if you don't believe that the world is standing on the edge of a global insurrection, global revolution, an economic crisis the likes of which the world has never seen in the history of the world, and a global or universal war which is now underway. Let's just go to Joe Biden's own words, okay? We're going to look at what Joe Biden said then, and we're going to look what he said a couple weeks later, and we'll see where we are, okay? So this is what Joe Biden said about sending tanks to Ukraine a few weeks ago. Pay close attention to this. Yeah, Joe Biden. Yeah, Western establishment. I'm your huckleberry. You can believe that. Check this out.
The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews. Just understand, don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say. That's called World War III.
Today, I'm announcing that the United States will be sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine.
Let's look at that again. Let's look at that one more time.
The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews. Just understand, don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say. That's called World War III.
Today, I'm announcing that the United States will be sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine.
So what did Joe Biden say at first that would be called? I'm asking the people who are listening to it and who will listen to it later. What did he call that? By putting missiles and trains and planes and tanks into Ukraine? What did he call that? Don't kid yourself, my people. That's called World War III. And in the same breath, what did he do? Today I'm announcing the deployment or the sale of 31 tanks to Ukraine. Huh? You see that? So if you don't believe what we're saying about this is global war. Will you believe Joe? Because Joe has just said it. So, Rashid, I know you have something to say about this, so I'll let you say something.
And the Russians ain't gonna sit back and say, "No, it ain't global." The Russians know what's coming on. They see it. They see that he is after them. And like I said, Putin and them is wiggling and trying to do everything they can to get out of what's right in front of their door. America has sent the jihadi or the cutthroat, and he's knocking at the Russian door. So Russia got to do something.
Yeah.
With a killer at your front door, can you actually hide it up under the bed?
Yeah, because he's gonna come get you.
You got to deal with it. That's right. You got to deal with it, and that's what's taking place. Before you go on,
and you got to confront him head on, or he'll kill your family.
That's right. I was watching Gonzalo Lira a little show earlier, and he was talking about that. What's the Attorney General name? Garland, Maryland, just put a deal where he stole Russians' gold, and he said I didn't hear a peep out of. I was looking all over the American media, and there was not one peep. But he said the rest of the world didn't watch it.
Yeah.
All other governments around the world took note at what they did, and he said that the Chinese, the CCT, put up a big old article of what this pertains of stealing Russian gold and giving it to one of Zelensky's buddies.
Listen,
you hear
they didn't get that gold as Zelensky. America,
I know they stole it to themselves.
Yeah, that's what it is. Because listen, again, every place they go in, they still when they went into Ukraine, the first thing they secured was the gold. When they went into Iraq, they secured the oil fields, and on their way, they secured the currency, switched the currency exchange back from euros to dollars, and they took what was left of the gold there back to the West. No, they did it in Libya.
He's not saying that. He's saying the assets that was frozen in Western banks, they took those assets and allegedly gave it, but we know they took it and gave it to themselves.
Well, they did Libya. Remember, Libya had like $300 billion in $300 or $400 billion in assets for the Libyan state, and all of it just vaporized when the war took place. It just vanished.
This is the Western model, right? That's his nom de voir.
Yeah,
stealing people's money,
right? And they see, and the madness of this is that they're trying to take on Iran, Russia, and China at the same time. It brought me back. I was last night as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the confrontation that took place between, you remember a little over a year and a half ago up in Alaska when the Chinese and the US met there, and it was a confrontation between the diplomats, and then China. America was surprised because China had sent that new class of destroyers off the coast of the United States for the first time, and it shocked the United States that China, while they were doing diplomacy, they showed America that you too can be touched. Matter of fact, while I'm talking to the people, I'm going to let you see the back and forth between these two people. Okay. So before I do that, I just want you to understand that we are looking at global war. And look at this, right? Look at this exchange. Normally the Chinese, they're like that. They bide their time. But this right here shocked the U.S. that the Chinese foreign minister and the Chinese diplomats went toe-to-toe with U.S. diplomats and told the U.S. that we're not scared of you. That time is over with. In so many words, and they put the U.S. in this place, and the U.S. didn't know how to act. And as the U.S. was puffing up, China has sailed their new class of destroyers off the coast over by California, and it really threw the U.S. for a loop when this took place. But listen to this, because the U.S. think they have the monopoly of selling ships across other people's seas and trying to get a message to other nations. But this was a reverse. But here we go.
US and Chinese officials had a testy exchange at the first high-level meeting between the Biden administration and China. Tensions are rising between the world's two superpowers as both sides dig in on a litany of issues. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken opened the two-day meeting in Anchorage, Alaska, with a list of grievances.
We'll also discuss our deep concerns with actions by China, including in Xinjiang, Hong Kong, Taiwan, cyber attacks on the United States, economic coercion toward our allies. Each of these actions threaten the rules-based order that maintains global stability. That's why they're not merely internal matters, and why we feel an obligation to raise these issues here today.
After that, the gloves were firmly off. China's top diplomat, Yang Jiechi, fired back with a 15-minute speech in Chinese, lashing out about what he said was the United States' struggling democracy and poor treatment of minorities, including the, quote, slaughtering of African Americans. Usually opening statements last just a few minutes, but these went on for more than an hour in front of the world's media. Yang said the US was in no position to judge.
Xinjiang, Tibet, and Taiwan are all inseparable pieces of Chinese territory. We are firmly opposed to the U.S. interfering in China's internal affairs. We express firm opposition to the U.S. actions of interfering in China's internal affairs, and we will make resolute responses to these.
State Councillor Wang Yi also chimed in.
Especially before you haven't even exchanged opinions with China, you have to just label China and coerce us. Is that the right attitude? Of course, China will not accept it.
Afterwards, both sides accused the other of violating protocols, with the Chinese diplomat saying the US had been inhospitable. China had been looking to reset relations with the US after they hit rock bottom under the Trump administration.
So again, you heard them talk about, Blinken talk about the rules. China is trying to challenge the rules-based order. Again, I got to refer that, before I play the other clip, I got to refer that back to a clip of an interview I did with the late Professor Dennis Etler, and how we talked about what the so-called rules-based order is really about. Okay, I have to go back to this because this puts things in a better perspective. And don't forget to check us out tomorrow with Scott Ritter. We'll be coming in early than we normally do. Normally we do around 11:30 or 11:45, but we'll be doing it because by request by Scott, we'll be doing it at 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern time with Scott Ritter tomorrow morning. But check this out right here, what he and I chopped it up over about the so-called rules-based order. So when you get this part in your mind, we'll go back to the stuff on China, okay? Now, I want to play something for you, and I'm going to do it off my phone because I notice whenever I play a clip on StreamYard or YouTube, the volume is so low, and I don't know why they do that, because it's not just my show that does that. It's on multiple shows. So I want you to hear something. This is from Press TV. Let me put it to this. This is from Press TV. Sure. And I'm going to play something. It's about 1 minute and 21 seconds. And I want you to listen to Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO Secretary General, or what he has to say. And before I play it, I like to inform people that when you hear Joe Biden or Donald Trump, or you hear Stoltenberg, or you hear Macron, or any of these people talk about a rules-based order, they're not talking about an international order with rules for everyone, that the same rules. They're talking about a rules-based order where the Western world dominates and the Western world dictates what everybody else should do. So everyone who will be listening to this should understand that. As when we play this later, when this interview goes live later, I want people to understand that the rules-based order is not an order, international order of everybody plays by the same rules. It is a order where the Western world, that is NATO, Europe, and America, dictates to everyone else, and everyone else plays by the rules that are given to them by the West. Would you agree with that?
Oh, of course, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, now I'm going to play this minute and 21 seconds, and after that, I want to pick your brain on what you hear in this. To me, it was a desperate plea or a desperate call to try to save a declining order. So I just want you to hear this. Here we are. It's getting. Hold on one second. I think. Hold on. Here we are. Hold on one second. All right, there we are. Well,
China and Russia are trying to rewrite the rules of the road to benefit their own interests. The rise of China is a defining issue for the transatlantic community, with potential consequences for our security, our prosperity, and our way of life. This is why NATO should deepen our relationships with close partners like Australia and Japan, and fortunate ones around the world. Your vision for the future. Defending our rules-based orders starts by defending our values at home. We must recommit to our values, strengthen our democracies, and protect our institutions. Because ultimately, this is what makes us who we are. We also need to invest to maintain our technological edge. We now have an historic opportunity to build a stronger alliance, to regain trust, and to reinforce our unity. Europe and North America working together in NATO, in strategic solidarity. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General.
Now, he talked about China and Russia being a growing threat to the international rules-based quote-unquote order, and how remember, he didn't say South America, he didn't say Central America, he didn't say the Caribbean, he didn't say Africa, he didn't say Asia. He said Europe and North America working together to enforce whatever, quote unquote, their culture or whatever. I'm paraphrasing now. Their culture, their institutions. Isn't that racist in itself? I mean most people don't get that. Isn't that racist in itself?
All it is reframing, their, colonial policies of the past. You can't come out and use the racist rhetoric of the 19th century any longer. That's passe. You got to sugarcoat it. You got to obfuscate it. But that same rules-based order is the rules-based order of European colonialism and American imperialism. That's all it is.
So that was, I took you back to, and he and I used to chop it up all the time. Even off the camera, we used to chop it up a lot. And he actually gave us his last interview to anyone, period. Professor Dennis Etlick gave the Red Pill Diaries his last interview. We were supposed to actually have 3 more coming up the week of his death, but we couldn't make it happen. So I think the last one is called the 100-Pound Gorilla. It's on the channel. That's his last interview ever given to anyone, any place. Okay, but check this out. So he talked about China, and he talked about the Western world has to maintain its technological advantage and all of this stuff because of China and Russia is a growing threat. Why, again, one must ask, why do you think that China and Russia are threats when they are not bombing, occupying, or destroying nations? Why are they a threat? And who are they a threat to? Well, they let us know. They say they are a rising threat to America and Europe. Why? Because if you have altering or differing poles of power, you cannot just go around the world just disregarding people's national interests, because if you disregard one of their allies, then they may be forced to come to the aid of their allies. And this is unacceptable. The United States said that after the fall of the Soviet Union, Their stated doctrine was to not allow any rising power or combination of powers to become their peers or equal militarily or economically. That is the stated goal and stated policy of the United States of America. I'm not lying. I'm not embellishing it. That is their policy. So this is why you see the FBI agent, the FBI director a year or so ago say this right here. Pay close attention.
All eyes are on Russia, of course, but the director of the FBI is warning that China is the biggest threat America faces right now when it comes to our economy and our American innovation. He says the threat's getting more brazen and more damaging than ever before. Director Christopher Wray delivering a stinging rebuke of the Chinese government just days before Beijing takes the world stage and hosts the Winter Olympics. He's calling out China for stealing staggering amounts of information and destroying jobs across America. In an exclusive interview with NBC Nightly News, Director Wray told our Pete Williams, China is stealing American secrets on a daily basis.
We are investigating, opening a new China-related counterintelligence investigation. Typically, it involves theft of American intellectual property or secrets. About every 12 hours, we probably have over 2,000 of those investigations.
He is comparing the threat from the Chinese Communist Party to that of the former Soviet Union. CNBC senior Washington correspondent Eamon Javers with more now. Eamon?
Yeah, Shep, Director Wray said competition with the Chinese is going to be much more difficult than it was against the Soviets because China is a vastly more powerful economic power and possesses technology that rivals our own. And he said the threat from the Chinese espionage is getting worse.
There is just no country that presents a broader threat to our ideas, our innovation, and our economic security than China. The Chinese government steals staggering volumes of information and causes deep, job-destroying damage across a wide range of industries.
Wray said the Chinese use intelligence officers to target specific information and obtain it from sources inside the target companies, citing a recent case at GE Aviation in which the company was able ultimately to stop a penetration effort by an agent of the Chinese Ministry of State Security who was intent on stealing advanced jet technology. And he said the Chinese government has deployed its vast cyber capabilities toward that same goal.
Chinese government hackers have stolen more of our personal and corporate data than every other nation combined. The harm from the Chinese government's economic espionage isn't just that its companies pull ahead based on illegally gotten technology. While they pull ahead, they push our companies and workers behind.
And despite the advanced technology employed by those Chinese cyber spies, Director Wray said they often use a deceptively simple technique to locate and approach potential sources in the United States, Shep. They just go on LinkedIn.
Eamon Javers, thanks.
Now, they said China is spying on everybody. Now, here's a Politico article that was published in Europe says the U.S. is spying on allies is normal. And here's another one says U.S. spied on Merkel and other European leaders through Danish contacts. Here's another one. The U.S. spies on everyone. Now, your memory is short, but mine is not. Do you remember when America was found out, when the world found out that she was using backdoor, this was roughly about 2 years ago, backdoor viruses in computers and everything else, and she was siphoning off electronic signals with information from all of the nations. They say there was a global network, and the Chinese found out about it and passed the information over to the Russians and the South Americans and the Africans and the Europeans. And this is when America was found out to be spying on her allies also. So pot kettle action here. Now, something that was said in that, they said the Chinese have technology that rivals our own, and in some cases surpasses it. Then what the hell would they be stealing yours for? Why would I steal inferior technology? I mean, see, what I'm asking everyone to do for a change is to use common sense, okay? because all of this stuff is being fed to us on a steady plate of propaganda. Maybe the Chinese steals things from here and there, but America does too. Ask her, how did she get the nuclear bomb? And how did she get her B-1 bombers and stuff? That was stolen German and technology, right? Or her F-16s. Didn't that begin from a MiG or something like that? So she wants the world to believe that, hey, I'm capable to build my own stuff. And yet you steal everybody else's stuff and you spy on everybody else's stuff. Rashid, I know you have something to say as we go deeper into this. I don't want to hog everything. What say you on this matter?
You keep forgetting they are exceptional. They can do stuff that nobody else can do. Don't forget that. You got to put that paramount in your mind. America can do anything she wants, and nobody else can do anything else to her. You know, she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. She's the bee's knees and the cat's meow. You know, we up there and nobody can. We great, and everybody else is also ring.
But yeah,
no, you going.
You know what it is. It shows what the person said about desperation. This reeks of desperation. When you see you're in decline, and remember the definition that we gave is the Google's definition from the dictionary. It says desperation, a state of despair, typically one which results in rash or extreme behavior, hopelessness, despair, distress, anguish, pain, agony, torment. She's being tormented and she's full of agony and pain and anguish, and she's becoming more and more distressed and becoming into a state of despair over the fact that she can no longer wield unlimited power and influence globally, and that she's no longer the cream of the crop when it comes to technology. Because remember, 2 years ago, they were saying that China can't build their own engines for the 5th generation warplanes. They rely on Russia. And now China has powerful jet engines in their 5th generation airplanes. China has two working hypersonic missiles that are already deployed. America is in the stages of planning and testing. Okay, now China has the most powerful warship on the planet. American officials even admitted that the Chinese have the most powerful warship on the planet that sees twice as far as the most powerful U.S. warship and can fire at 2 to 3 times as far. And has more armament on board.
And when it go out to sea, it don't have to be towed back in the next 2 months to port.
And let us not forget about this. The Chinese has also conducted research where they're coming up with a hypersonic air defense system. The United States has nothing to the likes of this. Nothing. And remember, let me point out something to you, and then I'll let you say something. Do you remember America's big brouhaha and blow up about she was going to be the first nation with railgun technology? And then
that's what I was going to say.
Surpassed her railgun technology, and they actually have working weapons on their destroyers and their frigates in America. A year ago or 2 years ago, finally came to the conclusion that there was a technology that they could not master because of the cost and the time that it takes. So they have given up even trying to conquer railgun technology. So on one hand, we see a power falling and it's lashing out and blaming everybody else for her fall. And on the other hand, we see a nation rising and saying, take responsibility for what you did.
Maybe they are the ones that I am, and America's the also ran.
Yes. So again, they say they deem China as the #1 threat to America. Now, with this said, we're going to go into some more, and we like to chat, engaging in a lot of stuff. We're going to put, as we play the videos, we're going to put comments up from the chat also. We love for you to give us your opinion and the dialogue, because you're just as important. Your thoughts and your perspective matters just as much as ours, and we really appreciate the chat and engaging. So again, let's go to something. They said that they wanted war with America. Now I want we're going to go back to Mr. Mr. General, as he talked about the reality of the situation with China. And he has a U.S. bias, and they can always justify China's aggression, Russian aggression, Iranian aggression. Now, in their borders, in their seas, and tending to their own business, they're aggressive. America is not aggressive in Ukraine. America is not aggressive in Syria, in the surrounding nations of Iran, and America is not aggressive, stoking tensions between the mainland and Taiwan and China and the Philippines and China and Japan and China and South Korea. That's not aggressiveness.
As we said before, they go way halfway around the world, invade another country, and the people that's trying to fight them off is the terrorists.
They're the terrorists. Now listen, we're going to go back to this. We're going to walk you back to this, of what he said about the situation that America is facing in Asia.
A top Space Force general warning the U.S. is lagging behind China and Russia in developing hypersonic defense technology. This as U.S. officials reportedly confirmed China's hypersonic missile test in July was more advanced than initially thought. Let's bring in Fox News senior strategic analyst General Jack Keane. And I noted that David Thompson, he's the vice chief of space operations for the United States, says we are not as advanced as the Chinese or the Russians in terms of hypersonic programs. Is that a problem, General?
It absolutely is, Dana. I mean, the United States is used to having a qualitative advantage over our adversaries for decades, and this has begun to change, not just with this system, but with some others. And clearly the Chinese and the Russians have technology that we do not have in terms of its deployability yet. The Army will produce a system, in 24, the Navy in 25 on surface ships, and also on submarines in 27. But that will still leave us with a major problem, Dana, because we don't have any way to defend against this system. And what we're involved in developing as quickly as we can is advanced satellites with sensors on it to be able to track this system as it orbits the Earth's atmosphere, and secondly, to be able to intercept it. So both of those developments have to take place, and they are a top priority, certainly for the Pentagon. And listen, we have said before that China has a quantitative advantage over us in the Indo-Pacific region. They've got more airplanes, they've got more ships, and they have more missiles than we have deployed in that area. And that is another thing that we have to overcome and begin to forward deploy our capability there to establish deterrence. After all, what we have learned from 40 years of dealing with the Soviet Union, we have to have a strategic deterrence that the enemy accepts as real and that we would use it, and therefore they do not want to enter into conflict with the United States. And we've got to fix this with a sense of urgency, Dana.
I feel the same on that one. I also wanted to ask you about this. You've followed this story for years, and the question of whether Russia is amassing troops on the borders with Ukraine for a possible invasion. And some are saying that maybe by late January that could happen. But the spokesperson for the Kremlin, our old friend Dmitry Peskov, says this hysteria is being whipped up artificially. He said this on state television in Russia.
So we hear this about China having and employing technology that is far more advanced than the U.S. had first expected, and that they are fielding in weapons that the United States not only does not have, but are in the not even in the test stage, but on the drawing. Now, if that is the case, then how can you justify the FBI director saying that China is stealing America's advanced technology? I mean, the two are diametrically opposed. So how can you say that on one hand, China is stealing your technology, and on the other hand, say, well, China has technology that is far more advanced than we thought, and is fielding weapons that we don't have yet?
But Brother Rashid, don't let logic get in the way of the understanding of the what he's saying is diametrically opposite of what he's saying. Yes. It's never gonna match up. You bad, but yet still give me some money. Are you poor? Yet still I want your money. It just shows you that the as we have been said before, she's going off the cliff with her understanding. She's not dealing in reality. What she says does not make sense because she said it. It makes it so. Well, I've come out of like on this MSNBC. Russia is doing this. I heard even with yesterday. What is it? Judge Napolitano saying that he got something that was going around Yahoo that Russia lost over 1,500 men in one day, and then he actually put it like it's fact. It's rumor.
Yeah.
And innuendo. You know, if she didn't devolve into, used to call the Soviet Union's state-run media. Now look at Americans as the state-run media.
Yeah.
Lies, rumor, innuendo. Just some cat think of a rumor and they pick it up and run with it on television. This is what they was talking about. Fox News, one of the MSNBC, I think, well, Fox News was talking about they had poison pens and fairies and just some unbelievable. Fox News is fixed news.
Yeah,
but then again,
that's what I call
MSNBC and the rest of them are on the same level.
Right.
You don't get no news in America. If you want some news, you got to go outside of America.
Right. So I'm gonna put a few comments on the screen, and then we're gonna continue on, and we'll wait for some more. There's some more comments, but I'm gonna put a few. Tiger says China should send a balloon every month. One way past cool says, let's see, America and NATO is a big bully doing what they want, but times are changing. You can believe that. Times are definitely changing. What the Tiger says, let's see if that'll go. Oh, the Blinkman implied Taiwan as part of China. That's naming it in the same sentence as Xinjiang and Hong Kong. Well, all of them are going to return to China. All of them are going to return to China. Well, I should say now Taiwan will return to China because the other parts are returning to China. Even Russia had to give part of a piece of land back to China. Even Russia. And you can Google that. Russia had ceded some territory to the Chinese in the last few years. Let's go to something else. We'll go here. And Cece says, thank you for playing historical takes because we need it. We definitely need it. You know why? Because people mind and their thoughts are short. It seems like they can only focus on the things right here. Is what and everything that happened yesterday or a few years ago just magically disappears. And so when people act like that, they don't have a proper perspective of how things started and why things are the way they are. That's why we continue to give you definitions, give you clips, and read to you articles so that you can't say that this is what we're saying. We're telling you what they're saying. All right. And so another, it says capitalism has made them greedy. So China trying to remind them of the historical beginning. I would say this: capitalism didn't make them greedy. They were greedy from the jump, and they made capitalism so that they can enrich themselves. They made a parasitic system so that they can further enrich themselves. That's what I would say. Because the system came out of them. They didn't come out of the system. But listen, let's see. All right, we'll put this up here. Tiger says, last I checked, the U.S. stole everything. First from the Spanish, then from the British and the French, then from the Germans and the Japanese, and then from the Soviets.
No. He stole it from the American Indians first.
No, he's talking about technology. He's talking about technology. He's talking about technology. I understand what he's saying. Let's see. Oh, yeah. And we got to follow that up with that. Now America is out of people to steal from, which is why the last 30 years, there were very little innovations. All right. So, and let's go
Well,
further.
and other people have got more technology to hide their technology, got more, came up with more ways to stop them from stealing their technology. Now she ain't got nothing.
Yes. And then Cece says, America is not advanced. I watched these so-called UFO over the U.S. land, and I never see the air defense take the UFO sightings down. That tells me the air defense is outdated. They can't build an air defense that'll take down one of them. And now this China balloon was confirmation. Okay, now Mr. Clean Ali. Shout out to Mr. Clean Ali. This guy right here, he has a movement called the Man Up Movement, and I think you need to go to his page, Daniel Shabazz, on Facebook. He has the Man Up Movement. This guy, he's talking about responsibility of black men, black children, and everybody else. But he starts it with black men and black children, and the black family, because in urban America we see it being torn apart with drugs and with gun violence and stuff that has been just rammed down the throats of urban America. He is also talking about becoming productive in your community and productive in your society. You got to get this guy Daniel Shabazz on Facebook. You got to check him out. He has a store, the Man Up Movement. I have my shirt. Matter of fact, I got to get 2 more. Man, you got to get hit me up so I can get 2 more. All right, support him. He's trying to do something positive, and he's trying to push a movement to of awareness and what must be done, especially in this day and time. So now let's go on to the issues at hand about China, the U.S. And I'm going to tell you why America is so scared. It's because China is outpacing them in everything. They are chasing the United States down in everything that they once dominated in. You remember when I played you the clip about the gold and how China has really roughly 45,000 tons of gold that they have not even acknowledged. This is a hedge against the U.S. You see what the U.S. did to Russia and tried to steal its holdings, its currency holdings. Well, the Chinese know that they hold roughly $1 trillion+ in U.S. debt. Well, to offset the losses, they have acquired a massive amount of gold, silver. They don't just have oil, strategic oil reserves. They have strategic gold reserves, silver reserves, platinum reserves. They have copper reserves. I mean, palladium reserves. The Chinese has taken this thing so serious that when they buy stuff, they are putting it in reserves, so as to offset an eventual U.S. collapse and an eventual dollar devaluation and the madness that comes with that, as America tries to hold the nation's at gunpoint to hold on to dollar holdings. Go ahead, Rashid.
They own they make everything. You know, if you keep sending ships and ships and ships, you got to pay with something.
Yeah.
And now China and the rest of the world will say, we don't want that American dollar. We want something tangible.
Yeah.
Right? So this is what's freaking the empire out. They, you don't want my money? No. What can I give? He has nothing to give. So what's next? Bully, threaten, like you were saying about the bully. He's losing everything. So next thing you know, he's going to come out and start threatening everybody. If everybody don't do what I say, I'm going to blah, 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 blah. That's what's taking place.
And so, we have already showed you on videos where the Chinese has the largest and better equipped land army. And we showed you on clips where the Chinese, and this is according to the Western news too, that the Chinese has the largest, and they don't only just have quantitative, they have qualitative weapons also. They have the largest navy. And on a clip, when I said this on the show, I was thinking that the Chinese was going to surpass the United States Air Force in 2 years. But on the clip about the Navy, we find out that the Chinese has either caught up with them or they are passing them this year to have the largest Navy. You have the largest Army, the largest Air Force, the largest Navy in the world. You have the largest trading bloc. You have the largest manufacturing capacity. You are the largest economy with purchasing power parity, and you are the largest manufacturer and trader. You're the largest importer, the largest exporter, the largest purchaser of oil, the largest purchaser of gas. You are the heart of the economic engine which displaced the U.S. empire, and this is not acceptable in the eyes of the U.S. and their think tanks. So, saying that, this is what the Chinese has to say, according to I forget his name. What is his name from the British former MP Galloway, George Galloway? This is what he has to say.
Portable TV. Come watch with me. Earlier this week, we reported that the U.S. has recruited Australia, the French, and Japan in joint military exercises. Why? As a show of strength against China. Well, today, China is firing back with some tough words. A Chinese government news outlet has put out an editorial blasting the maneuvers and saying that the U.S. would be defeated if any conflict were to break out in the South China Sea. Here's RT correspondent Alex Mihailovich with the story.
The West is flexing its muscle, and China is not impressed.
The so-called joint military exercises by these countries, frankly speaking, has no impact on China at all. They're just burning a little more oil for themselves.
In a first ever, Japan is being joined by Australia, France, and the U.S. in military exercises in the southwestern part of that country. The drills include fighter jets and amphibious operation exercises, as well as naval maneuvering. Many believe that the activity in Japan is a show of force aimed at China, as Japan works towards expanding and consolidating military alliances in an effort to deter the neighboring superpower. However, it seems that the drills may have been counterproductive in some respects, irritating China instead of working to contain it. According to an editorial in China's Global Times newspaper, the United States will be defeated if it engages in combat with China in its neighboring waters. Another article in China's Global Times said, the People's Liberation Army doesn't even need to make pointed responses to the joint drill since it's insignificant militarily. PLA should make concrete steps in its own development, like it did with recent drills and warship commissioning, said analysts. Japan has had long-time territorial concerns in areas of dispute with China. Beijing has made claims to the Japanese-administered Senkaku Islands, and through the years, there has been Chinese military activity in the area. That said, China has insisted that it is not a threat to anyone and is merely concerned with its own territorial integrity, citing the Japanese exercises as misplaced energy on behalf of the participating nations.
I hope they will spend such time, energy, and resources more in severing their own people's interests and making more contributions to the current fight against the epidemic at home, as well as international anti-epidemic cooperation.
The Japan drills are a part of an increase in military activity involving the U.S. and its allies in the region. For RT, I'm Alex Mihailovich.
Joining us now is a former UK Member of Parliament, George Galloway, to talk about this a little bit. Boy, it just doesn't seem to stop. Every day, it seems, I wake up and there's another military exercise and another military exercise. And by the way, it goes both ways. Taiwan's doing military exercises. The U.S. is doing military exercises with Taiwan. The U.S. is doing military exercises with Australia. Now they're doing it with Japan and the Philippines. I mean, where does this end?
Well, let's take a leap of imagination. Imagine that the United States had 4 hostile countries. I know it's almost impossible to believe. Imagine America had 4 enemies. And imagine the 4 navies of those 4 enemies turned up off the coast of the United States and conducted drills, say in Cuba. With landings, amphibious landings, a critical mass of warships, firing, missiles, and so on. How would the people of the United States, how would the government of the United States react to that? And you have to walk a mile in the other fellow's shoes in international affairs. And if you try to, you'll understand how irritating this must all be to China. And what a spur it must be to China's own warship development, the commissioning that was just referred to there. If they're not fools, and I don't think they are, they'll be building so many warships right now that no one will dare to steam up the Yangtze or in the East China Sea and threaten them in any way, Rick.
You and I are old, so we know this, but a lot of our viewers don't because they were born after October of 1962. But what you just described in Cuba kind of happened already in 1962. And we came this close, George, to World War III as a result of that, when the shoe, as you say, was on the other foot.
Well, experience is the only good thing about getting old, Rick, and it means that we live through the periods in which the end of the world, if not nigh, was at least a distinct possibility. I recall going to bed as a child that night in 1962 and thinking that the world might end. And yet now we are cavalierly dispatching huge military assets into someone else's sea, the East China Sea. The clue is in the name. Now, this is all very foolish and dangerous. It would be far better, now that we're cooperating on the climate change issue, if we could turn down the dial rather than turning it up and getting back to some kind of cooperation.
George Galloway, nobody says it clearer or better. Thank you, my friend.
So now we got that understanding about the military. China has bluntly told us, you cannot beat us militarily. In a, you can't beat us. That is not happening. Hey, Rashid.
I'm getting ready. I'm having some work done on the house. I'm gonna have to bow out. But last thing I'm gonna say before I bow out is, mark our words, Japan gonna turn on it.
Yep. I'll check you later, man.
All right, bro.
Check this out. So, think about this. We're gonna follow up what Rashid said. Think about this. Do you actually believe that Japan has forgotten that America dropped not one but 2 nuclear bombs on them and didn't have to? Do you believe that Japan is building up its military to fight China? Japan is using China as a pretext to build up its military, because when the fighting starts in Asia and China starts digging in America's backside, Japan will switch sides. I'm telling you this. Mark my words on this. Because those wounds are eternal for those people. Do you believe that you would, if you had beef with somebody, but this other person over here who came in your house and raped your parents and raped your daughters and killed your children, and then after that set your house on fire and had you submissive to them for 60, 70 years, do you believe that you're going to take their side in the midst of a war battle? You might go out on the battlefield with them, but as soon as they walk in front of you, you're gonna backstab them. You're gonna shoot them or stab them or hit them for what they did. Somehow people forget this stuff. All right. But I want you to see one reason why America is in trouble. Okay.
So let's tie this in, because here's my big question for you. Joe Biden meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping to discuss Chinese economic practices. The U.S. must be aware and monitoring all this. How should they be preparing here, or is it unstoppable at this point?
Well, I think the U.S. is getting nervous, and China has made an official command by its foreign minister that the U.S. should alter its course or face conflict, an inevitable conflict. And China also have made statements, and this has been very rare in Chinese foreign policy, that they are preparing for war. And we've seen a quote from a U.S. general that the U.S. has to prepare for the big one. They say what we're doing to support Ukraine is just the start. We have to prepare for the big one. Well, the big one can only be a confrontation with China. So that's why more and more people are starting to get nervous that you could end up into a road towards a World War III. And even the Pope has mentioned it and warned about that.
So let's connect the dots, Willem.
So to put that in proper perspective, I got that clip last year, first part of last year. Just this year did the general come out publicly and say that they think that they're going to war with China by 2025. Now, I had this clip last year. So this is not something new. They do the drip effect. They continue to drop little tidbits of information to you so that if you rise up, they'll say, well, we tried to tell you this and try to tell you that. But in reality, we're watching the fall of America. As a matter of fact, I was looking at, what is his name? I think I downloaded his clip. The professor, I forget his name. I'm gonna play his clip. I apologize because I forget his name, but this is his perspective on the situation with America and China. And remember, all of this is in the context of what's going on in Ukraine, because America is mad that China would not go along with her demands. And before we play this clip, I also want to say something. They are now, not only is it America, but it's Europe following suit. They are now trying to dictate to Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia to either follow the sanctions that they imposed upon certain people or else be sanctioned. These are extrajudicial sanctions. These are being done out of the legal norm and out of the legal power of America and Europe. Now think about this. On one hand, they say Ukraine is a sovereign nation, should have a sovereign right to choose. Okay, you are saying that because you have installed a dictator and you want them to choose you. But what about all these sovereign nations that you're trying to sanction because they are standing with Russia or they're standing with China? Don't they have a sovereign right to choose too? Then if they do, and sovereignty is for everyone, then why are you trying to impose upon these nations your domestic politics? Because your domestic councils and your domestic governments chose to impose sanctions. That does not mean that I have to. I am not China, and I'm speaking about African nations, Latin American nations, China, and Asian nations. They are not under the jurisdiction or the laws of the EU or America. So for you to impose secondary sanctions on nations that refuse to carry out your dictates, you're in essence trying to make them submit and become the 51st or the 52nd or the 53rd state in the United States, because some people say that Israel is the 51st state. Some people say Britain is the 52nd state. So whichever one you want to do it, the 51st, 52nd, or the 53rd state. You're trying to force these people, these nations, and these governments into compliance with your domestic laws. How outrageous is that, and how much of a violation of national sovereignty and territorial integrity and the right to choose is that? We don't sit down and we don't analyze this because we just go with what they tell us. And this is why she's alienating enemies, and she's alienating some of her allies who are going along. They're going along. They get along because they know that she still has power and she still carries some weight. But immediately as the power wanes and the weight that she carries diminishes, they are going to then pursue their own national interests, because some of them are just ignoring their own populations and their own national interests to go along, to get along. And it's causing them economic hardship, the likes of which they never, ever experienced. And it's causing a fallout globally. And this is why nations are moving outside of the so-called, quote unquote, rules-based order in the US dollar-dominated monetary scheme. They don't realize that every step that they make to try to make people cower and submit is a step in the opposite direction, because it's pushing nations away from her. It's putting her financial system in a more unstable and untenable situation. And it is causing massive hardship to her and her allies. But the think tanks and the government officials, they don't see it because they're eating good and they're living good. And they're saying to the people, let them eat cake, right? But this will cause a mass rise up against them sooner or later, as the people continue to suffer and lose more, and as the nation of America and the nations of the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization continue to suffer defeat after strategic defeat after strategic defeat. This is what this professor has to say about this, his perspective on China's economic goal, China's goal in an economic war with America in the West. I want you to pay close attention to that, and then we'll bring it to a head thereafter, okay? And remember to join us 8 a.m. Central tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time, as we have former UN's Weapons Chief Inspector and former U.S. Marines Intelligence Officer Scott Ritter on the platform with us, okay? So check that out in the morning, early in the morning, because of his request. All right, so check this out.
Well, the most dramatic emergence of the new blocs in the world is the Chinese bloc. China's allies now include not just Russia, and China has backed Russia throughout this war in Ukraine, particularly the economic warfare question. China has bought more oil. China is providing supports of all kinds. But the Chinese have their own objectives, and those include building a new global system with multiple blocs, one of which is grouped around China. And it now has the active partnership of India, Iran, Turkey, Saudi Arabia. I could go on, but it's enough. The control of the global oil business, the control of the two largest countries by population in the world, China and India, ought to give everybody pause. India has bought the oil and the gas that Russia can't sell in Western Europe. Other countries are doing the same. Sanctions threatened against other countries for doing business with Russia and China have had very poor results. They just don't care. China offers the world an alternative. You can disagree with the United States. You can fashion your own economic strategic plan. You can clash with the United States because there's somewhere else to go. China, India, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the growing allies, the BRICS group, and the new members of that coming down the pike. It's a new world. This war has exposed economic nationalism as the new ideological reality governing the world economic system. It's exposed the decline of the United States. If I had more time, I would take you through the development of an alternative reserve currency, the petro-yuan, Saudi Arabia and China getting together. They're developing their own alternative to the SWIFT system, a global payment system, a global currency system that simply does an end run around the United States. Yeah, it'll take more time. These things are slow to work out all the problems, but they're now underway. And the longer and the worse that the war in the Ukraine gets, the more determined the opponents of the United States' shrinking position will be. The more clearly they will understand they too need to develop an alternative, because the United States is no longer the reliable governor of the world system. It was for a while. Who will dare keep their reserves where the United States could get its hands on them? Every country in the world is watching the guardian of the system play favorites. And that's gone way beyond what it was before, as this war has made clear.
So, listen, I know the beginning of the show started rough with the first 5 minutes where they kept knocking me off and kept freezing me and everything like that. But it turned out to be a pretty good show because we were able to get truth out. Remember to join us tomorrow morning at an earlier time. This is a one-off at 8 o'clock a.m. Central Time, 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, as we host former UN Chief Weapons Inspector and former U.S. Marines Intelligence Officer Scott Ritter on the platform. You'll be able to put your questions in the chat, and I'll run them off to him. Time permits. But I really, really appreciate you guys sticking with me through the whole length of the show. I want you to know that I love you, but always remember that God loves you best. On that note, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. I love you, as I said, but God will love you best. And in ending, I have to say this, Mama, your baby boy loves you more than life.